11 must-have legal landlord documents from my perspective.
You need to make sure that you have your legal documents in check.
You need an application to rent. And you need an application to rent because you have to show that you are a fair and equitable landlord. You can do that by proving that you are putting everybody through the same process. Pictures of everything and or a video of everything. So you need a move-in and a move-out inspection. That's absolutely critically important if you are ever going to claim damages or you want to claim anything against the security deposit.
Is it allowed in Alberta for subletting?
It is. Actually, you're not allowed to turn people down flat without a valid reason. Okay. They have to give you, the tenant has to give you written notice, and if you don't respond within 14 days, you've got yourself another tenant. So you have to respond within 14 days.
So make sure you get that sublet agreement put into place. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. My name is Kayla Andrade. I'm the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch and a co-host with the Canadian Real Estate Channel. We're bringing experts across Canada to you to give you all the information that you need so that you're successful in running your real estate business across Canada. And we've talked many different videos with many different experts, and we've held this guest, Nelda Schulte, who is with us again to discuss multiple topics that we will probably rant off into, but we do because we're so passionate. Nelda's been doing this for 18 years. I've been doing this for almost 19 years. And now we've talked about our previous videos where you talk, we're talking about tenant screening, and we're talking about tips that you wish you knew before you even became a landlord. And now we're going to be talking to you about, now that you have went through the tenant screening, you know, we now need to do paperwork because we're running a business in Alberta with being a landlord. So you need to make sure that you have your legal documents in check. And Nelda is here to give you her 11 tips or 11 forms, I would say, legal documents of what she feels that every landlord is going to need being a landlord in Alberta. Nelda, thank you so much for coming on once again and being able to give us all your cookies. We're eating them up.
Okay. Glad I did my baking. Anyway, thanks for having me, Kayla. Good to be here. And you want to hear 11 must-have legal landlord documents from my perspective. And what I'm going to do this time, rather than rambling, I'm going to go in order, and then I'll back up and just talk about them a little bit.
Everyone get your pen, get your paper, write it down, because, or if not, we're going to be able to post Nelda's website here so you can reach out to her and make sure that you have it. If you're investing in Alberta, we want to make sure that you're prepared to know what forms you need as you're signing on this tenant.
Great stuff. So first thing you need is, first document is a credit check authorization. If you are running a credit check on your tenant, which you should, then you will definitely need their permission to run a credit check. So that's the first document you need. The second one is you need an application to rent. And you need an application to rent because you have to show that you are a fair and equitable landlord. You can do that by proving that you are putting everybody through the same process. It isn't one process for one person, another one for another one. Everybody fills out the application for rent. Everyone fills out a credit check authorization. And then you need a lease addendum. An addendum is any kind of a modification you're making to the lease. So for instance, if your lease says no pets allowed and you are allowing a pet, then you need to create an addendum. That's the third document. And then you need a pet agreement in Alberta. And I realize this is different than in Ontario, but in Alberta you can have a pet agreement or a pet lease, and you can charge a non-refundable pet deposit per pet.
How much can you charge?
Well, you can start at $250 per pet.
Damn. So per pet. I gotta come to Alberta, man. Now to find me something. You gotta find me something.
I've got a place you can rent in Fort McMurray if you're looking for.
$250. Now, do a lot of people in Alberta have a lot of pets?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, I didn't used to ever accept pets in my properties, but then during the recession, I realized that I was probably missing out on 50% of the population, and so I started allowing pets in. And that's what
I let them in for $250. Is it $250 a month, or is it $250 just That's
Oh,
a
no,
deposit.
no, I just, but there are people who do charge a month. They'll charge a deposit and then they charge a pet fee per month.
And can you increase that monthly rent deposit up and down, or is it
No.
fixed? Like,
No, once you've set the fee and they've signed the addendum, that's it.
it's still good. At least you can charge it. We can't get nothing.
I know, that's kind of sad. In fact, that makes me really sad. You can specify the weight, the breed, the type of animal, because as a landlord, you can also be liable for someone's pet if the pet attacks somebody. So you can specify those things in Alberta. A move-in, move-out inspection. If you are claiming any damages, and in Alberta, we have a security deposit that you can claim damages against, or for instance, if they didn't complete the cleaning, a move-out cleanup is required, and you've given them documentation, they have to do it and they don't do it, then you can charge their security deposit for that. But you can't charge them anything unless you've done a move-in inspection and a move-out inspection. So the move-in, move-out inspection show the condition of the property when the tenant moves in, and you need that documented, and you also need pictures and or videos that everybody has a copy of, and you need a move-out inspection with documented words, bathroom, 4-piece bathroom, whatever. You need everything flushed out, pictures of everything and or a video of everything. So you need a move-in and a move-out inspection. That's absolutely critically important if you are ever going to claim damages or you want to claim anything against the security deposit.
Nice.
Then you need a property maintenance inspection report. Most rental property insurance companies require landlords to do regular inspections. And they will specify, they will tell you, we want you to come in twice a year, or we want you to go in quarterly. And they do that because they want to make sure that landlords are maintaining the property. If you're not maintaining the property and then you're dinging insurance at the end because you knew the toilet was leaking or the sink was leaking and it created a huge black mold problem, insurance is not going to cover you. You have to document all of that. So a way to do that is by doing regular property maintenance inspection reports. You can have one that's drafted up that's got everything on it. You just go in and check things off, put the dates on it, and you sign it, and the tenant signs it, and it goes into your tenant cube documentation or your front lobby documentation. You need a co-sign agreement. If you have somebody who, let's say, has never rented a property before, like an 18-year-old, or maybe somebody's been married for a very long time and they've never actually owned anything or rented anything and they have no history, then you need a co-signer or a guarantor. And you need an agreement for that again, everyone keeps a copy of, and that's signed and dated.
And you can also report the guarantors to front lobby as well to actually help them build their credit history by the tenant paying on time. So a lot of people don't know that part.
Oh, I didn't know that either. That's fantastic.
Oh, co-signers are now meaning something. They're meaningful now in Ontario because of front lobby. Before, it was like co-signers were just like, you got to go to small claims court in Ontario. So it's like landlord and tenant board really didn't give an order based on the guarantor on there. So now you can actually report them to the credit bureaus. Now it actually gives us a little bit more clout.
Oh, that's great. And also to report the good people because they deserve to be rewarded as well. So that's great.
There's so many out there that need to be rewarded.
I totally agree. You need a sublease document if your tenant is decided to sublease their property.
Now do you provide the sublease to the tenant?
Yeah.
So
yes.
Is it allowed in Alberta for subletting?
It is. Actually, you're not allowed to turn people down flat without a valid reason. Okay. They have to give you, the tenant has to give you written notice. And if you don't respond within 14 days, you got yourself another tenant. So you have to respond within 14 days.
So make sure you get that sublet agreement put into place. So always ask them about it at the beginning of their tenancy, or it just
beginning of tenancy. Yeah, and my lease actually says that you can't sublease or sublet without knowledge and consent of the landlord. Now that doesn't mean people don't try, but it's in the lease. So if you get them to read that, and then if they tell you, I want to move in another tenant, or your neighbors tell you, by the way, did you know there are 3 other people living in your house? Then you can go back to them and say, this is what it says, and here's the document that you have to sign in order to sublease your property. Then you need a lease non-renewal notice. So let's say you have a fixed term lease that goes for 12 months, and it's the end of month 10 or 11, and you've decided you're not going to keep your tenants. You want them to move on. You don't have to. It's actually kind of, well, you do have to, for periodic tenants, you do have to give a non-renewal notice, but next term you don't. It's just a nice courtesy. So 30 to 90 days ahead of their expiration date of their lease, send them a non-renewal notice and let them know that the date that they have to move out and the time. Notice to enter, you have to give your tenants 24 hours notice to enter their premises. So sometimes you have a really good relationship with your tenants, and they'll say, just you don't have to give me 24 hours.
Just go in. I give you a text message. You're good.
Yeah, the text or a phone call, and they're like, yeah, come in. If you have a contentious relationship with your tenants, you should post the 24-hour notice of entry or notice to entry on the door and take a date stamped picture of it, just to prove that you posted it. And then
picture,
you can go
video, whatever you got to do. It's very, very, very important, especially if you're dealing with a difficult tenant. It's from notices to 24-hour notices. Always document.
Document. And then you also can't go in on their day of worship. So if that person's day of worship is Wednesday night, you need to find that out, or a Sunday, and you cannot enter unless you've gotten their permission. And then lastly, the form that everybody hates, the document that must have that no one wants to talk about, is the eviction notice. Nobody wants to evict, no one wants to think about it, but you do need the proper eviction notices. Now, if you're going through the Residential Tenancy Dispute Resolution, RTDRS, they have their own process and they have their own forms. And if you're going through a different process, if, like, for instance, an eviction service, then they've got a quicker process that they go through, or they can go through those things with you. But either way, if you have an eviction specialist or you're doing it yourself through the RTDRS, you need to make sure you have the right forms in place to give them appropriate notice of eviction up to the eviction and the right eviction notice. You skip any of those things, you go right back to point A. Start all over again.
So the eviction specialist, are they different than the
RTDRS? Yeah, it's hard to remember that acronym. There's so many letters.
So you can go to either one?
You can, if you want to do it yourself, and there are landlords who do want to do it themselves. I've talked to, I know a number of them. They want to do the process themselves. They like that. God, I don't understand why, but they do. Then you go through the RTDRS, and they've got all their forms, they've got their process, they've got it outlined in the in Service Alberta. If you don't want to do it, and you're saying, I just want to get the tenant out as quickly as possible, then you could call an eviction company, and they'll do it for you, and they can usually get tenants out much quicker. So going through the RTDRS process can take 3 to 6 months, depending on the level of complexity. Going through an eviction service is much faster. Like, again, 3 weeks to a little bit longer if you've got a more complicated process or situation.
All right, Nelda, find me something. I'm coming. Just let me cash out of here. I'm in Alberta.
But I've heard some really interesting stories from landlords who got tenants out in different ways. I can't talk about any of those because I'm following the letter of the law here, but wow, they do get very interesting and very complex.
That's for the private Zoom meetings.
Yes, those are great.
We got to do everything right, guys. You always want to, we always want to see what we can get away with, but you know what? Sometimes when you push the limit, sometimes you pushed it too far, and like Nelda said, if you have to start the process all over again, and it's definitely not good to have a fine or to get in trouble based on you just trying to skip that process. But in Alberta, it seems very fair and balanced, and also it seems like an expedited process in order to deal with a tenant. And I think, do your tenants in Alberta seem to know the system? Like, you don't have a lot of people abusing your system, or is it?
Oh, no, they're always those. There's tons of tenant warnings out there, and there are scams that are going on all the time. But I would not say the RTDRS is a quick process, and it really depends on who you get for a judge on how they rule. It's not a process I would go through if it was me, if I ever had to evict, and I haven't had to yet, knock on wood. I've gotten close, but at that point I called an eviction agency and just said, tell me how you deal with this. How much does it cost? Can you deal with it? Because they're specialists. They're going to be a lot faster at the paperwork and the whole process dealing with the judges than I will be.
How much would it be between the two, like the going through an eviction specialist and going the other route? What would be the cost?
Yeah. Eviction services, I think around $600-700. Again, depending on the complexity, but I didn't think that was a lot. And then they represent you in court. They deal with everything. They file all the papers, all the paperwork. RTDRS, I don't think is that expensive, but it's your time. It's going to take you time to learn what you need to learn and then do what you need to do. And you have to do it correctly the first time around, because if you don't, you go to the back of the bus and you start the paperwork all over again.
Note to self, let's find ourselves an eviction specialist and pick their brains. Gotcha.
I've had a couple talk on my show and they're really good and they're very entertaining. Like one was a former cop. He'd been a city police officer for 30 years.
Nice.
So he knew, he'd been through, there isn't anything he hasn't seen.
Wow. And, no, this is good. I'm actually like really interested to know from, like, we're always here with paralegals or doing it yourself, right? Now we have an eviction specialist, but they're not legal. It's just they're more equipped to knowing the process and they know how to go through it. And they probably build a very good rapport in order to get the evictions dealt with, and because they're a trustworthy person in front of the judge, I'm going to assume. Great tip there, knowing how we can be able to have the proper tools and learning that now before a landlord gets themselves into a difficult situation. And you want to be able to say, okay, I got a difficult situation. It's okay. I already learned about it. You're wasting time trying to learn about it and deal with the situation. It becomes more stressful too. So making sure that you're getting the education as much as you possibly can before a situation happens, so that you're prepared. And time is money.
Whichever one you choose, you're going to have your paperwork in place. You're going to have to show all your paperwork. So start documenting right from the start, and store it on a digital technology like Tenant Cube or Front Lobby, so that you can access it, tenants can access it. It's all right there.
This is great. This is great. And we'll put the links in there so that you can find these fantastic products and services. And that's what we're also all about, making sure that we're getting you to the product, the services, and the education, so that you're prepared to have that financial freedom that we're all looking for, and that we're all prepared and educated, and making sure that we're doing the right things at the right times and bringing the right people to your screen. And we want to thank everyone for being able to welcome Nelda, give her a like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you follow her on Facebook as well. And we'll put her links into the description, and making sure you check out her website. She has fantastic blogs and a lot of education that she has within that. And I think you're going to just fall in love with her like I did, because I can't wait to have her back on, because we have many more questions that we have for Nelda, and we're excited that she is now a lovely guest on the Canadian Real Estate Channel. Tell us what you want to see next. The channel is here for you, and want to make sure that we're bringing you the tips and the tricks that you're looking to see on the channel. Thank you so much, everyone.